Hey guys, I'm Amaroth, and as a person who is usually giving feedback to beginners who show their usually first maps, I think that it is only fair of me to make a sort of review of my first map. And at the same time, I would also like to show you what my first map was like and tell you, hey, uh, modding and in general any kind of design comes with a long learning curve. If you want to make any sort of art, any sort of design, anything, you need to learn and master it. You need to train a lot, you need to practice. And it doesn't really matter whether you are talented or not. If you are talented, it can be easier, it can be quicker for you to learn things, and you can achieve higher goals. Your ceiling, your maximum is higher, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to practice. And I have been modding for 6 years now, and I'm still learning new things. And this is what my first map looked like, or my first zone, and it looks terrible. Let's be honest. But I think that the first map anyone has made looks terrible, and it is okay. So if your map which you have made as the first one or of your first attempts don't look good, don't be discouraged by that, and just know that you need to practice and that you are capable of learning it. Anyone can learn to make at least decent looking map. Maybe your map won't be perfect, maybe your map won't be completely great or flawless, but you can make at least decent or good looking map if you practice, and it doesn't matter whether you are talented or not. Uh, so I would like to make a review of this map to show you which mistakes I have done and talk a little bit about mistakes beginners in general tend to do a lot. So the very first thing I have done, you can see around that there are still some flat ADTs, and that's really what each map starts with flat ADTs. And speaking about ADTs, by the way, let's take a look at the map first. Actually, we've got 121 ADTs. That's insane. Really, this just there is no chance that I would ever be able to finish this. This map would take me maybe 2, maybe 3 years before it would be finished. I have overestimated myself and my capabilities and amount of my free time a lot. I have already said this in at the beginning of a level design series. Uh, 180, consider 180 to be something between 10 and 30 hours of work. And this just isn't doable for one person who has this as hobby, not as job. Uh, so size completely ridiculous here. Another thing, I had this flat ADTs, then I have placed buildings on that flat ADT, and I have started sculpting terrain around those buildings. And this has made this effect that city is very flat. All buildings are at the same height level. This one is a little bit higher, which makes it stand out a little bit and marks it as kind of important, but it really isn't enough. This city could have been so much better just by placing those buildings on different hills or cliffs. So don't start with just flat ground. Start with scouting terrain and then think about what should be where and how it should be placed and so on. Yet another thing, I wanted to use, or I had to use mountains as uh, borders for my map. That would be okay, but you can see that there is completely flat ground and then suddenly mountains. Whenever you take a look at the real mountains, there is always some sort of flat ground, and then it starts ground starts rising actually towards mountains. So it should be something like, something like this. Mountains should be high. Let's make it quicker. Mountains should be high, but there should be terrain should just be getting higher and higher towards the mountains as well. So it should look like this: flat ground. It can be flat or nearly flat, but then it should start rising a little bit towards mountains, and then there should start mountains. This is just terrible. Where this just doesn't work. Completely flat ground and then suddenly mountains. That's strange. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yet another thing which is quite wrong here, this ADT wasn't actually done by me, this was done by one of my friends, but I will show you this one nevertheless. You can see that size is completely off. That's yet another common beginner mistake, making completely oversized or too small models. Look at this grass and compare it even to buildings. It should be enough. That's what I have told you before as well. Hugo is our best friend. Use human scale and make sure that your models in your map are in proper scale. This grass has scale 2.2, and that's great, but correct scale would really be under 1. Really, and even this grass is pretty high. I mean, look at it. It should be right, maybe even like this. This grass should have been so much smaller, like maybe 4 times smaller. Now when we take a look at this, you can notice hopefully yet another mistake I have done, or it isn't necessarily a mistake, but in general, you should never use just one texture anywhere. First of all, you can see how it is being tiled. It can be clearly seen with nearly any texture if you use just one texture. And the second thing is that it is horribly boring. This is just so uniform, so boring. And just randomly placing another texture over it doesn't really help. What is way better is using some sort of different base texture, and I usually use dirt, and then start painting another texture over it. For example, it can be seen here on this hill. You can see that there is completely clean grass with 100 opacity, and then there is completely clean dirt, and there are so hard transitions between them. There is either grass or dirt, and there is nothing between that. Uh, and this area doesn't look natural. This just looks completely weird. And I ever find this to be done very easily if you have just clean dirt and then start painting grass over it with a little bit lower pressure, like at not higher than 60. And even with very big brush, you can make something very quick, very simple. But just make sure that you end up with something what isn't completely uniform. You know, this is just very simple, very random, very quick. Now let's erase terrain a little bit. There are some shading problems, but never mind that. Just erase terrain a little bit where you've got your texture and just polish it a little bit, so it isn't too sharp or too sudden, you know. And that's it. And this has taken me few seconds, and it looks just more interesting and better. When you are in game and running over those hills, this is something. This isn't completely boring. This is just weird. This is just grass everywhere without any without any difference. You can also see that I was quite struggling with attempts to make some sort of clips. You can see completely clean line, just terrible. It should be something like, you know, don't be afraid to use small brushes. Actually, back then I didn't know that you can make your brush smaller by holding Alt, clicking and resizing it like this. So I was stuck with those basic brushes which are in Nogit, but alright, don't be afraid to use small brushes like this, and just make sure that your lines aren't completely even like this, completely straight, because that just doesn't look very natural. And my glyphs were also terrible. That was I was using linear flattening tool, and I was flattening it outwards. So I was like, place it here and move it towards me out from that hill, and that produced this very strange effect. What usually works better is flattening tool and following actually a line. We've got edge or border in this way, so follow that line. Don't do this, do this. Follow that top line, and that just would look way better usually, something like this. And then of course repaint it and so on. I won't do it right now here. So that was my first dome. You can also see that I had these mountains or sort of mountains very close to map borders, and that isn't very good idea because it makes that map border be easy for players to perceive, and that a little bit ruins immersion. So I wouldn't replace map borders so close to actual borders of accessible areas. You can also see that I have used vanilla models and vanilla textures. And even now, beginners very often use, especially Elven models. I don't know, everyone starts with Elven Forest for some reason. Even I did. But even when someone doesn't start with Elven Forest, nearly everyone starts with vanilla models for some reason. And I see even a little bit more experienced or even quite experienced map designers using vanilla or Burning Crusade models. Guys, it's 2017. If you want to make a project which is retro, which is supposed to bring old good memories back or something like this, I don't judge you. It's your project. Feel free to do so. But if you want to make a map which is modern, which looks good, which looks as good as possible, please don't use Elven Forest textures and models. Just move on. Try to use at least Wrath of the Witch King stuff. But really, if you are on Wrath of the Witch King expansion and want to make map look good, at least use textures and mods from your expansions, because otherwise you just end up with something that doesn't look very good. There are limits set up by using models which look like this. It's just terrible. Sorry, it's 2017. Yet another thing I have done very wrong, but to be honest, to be fair, we didn't have spray a brush. But still, this transition between environments is pretty terrible. It is just straight line. And even here with this snow, it was quite bad. So yeah, transitions between environments, I have shown this in previous videos. Use spray to use multiple different opacities, and you will make quite a decent looking transition and quite soft transition which looks natural between two completely different environments without an issue. Now this was the second zone I have designed, so it is still the first map, but I would never say this is completely different zone. And you can see that I have become way better than before. Well, it still has some flaws, but this place actually, I think that this is the biggest city I have ever made in World of Warcraft. And it is one of probably the only 2 or 3 cities I have ever made which would probably qualify in medieval world as real cities. It is just big enough. So there is poor part, there is middle class part, there is top class part. I was using different textures. I think I had a lot of changed textures here, so those buildings which don't even match very well, they were matching way better, but I no longer have that patch with modified textures, sadly. So this is just what it looks like with default textures. And what I have done correctly here is that I have started with actually sculpting terrain, and you can see it even with mountains and roads and everywhere. There is angled terrain. There are no longer flat areas. And this whole city is on multiple cliffs. There are three platforms this city is built on, and none of those platforms is straight. You can see that it is actually angled. This is angled like this, and this one here, I will go here to the street. You can see that this is angled as well. It isn't straight, it isn't flat. And that's very important. Just don't make your cities flat, because that looks very uniform and very boring. It could have been better, but this is at least something. Now moving on, there is still the same problem, just grass texture, nothing on it. This texture is very good actually, because it isn't so obvious that it is just one texture. You can't see those tiles that clearly, but you can still see them. So there should have been multiple textures here as well. Even just having dirt texture and painting, grass over it like I have done there, to show you. I should have done that here as well, obviously. There are some issues with textures here as well. You can see those transitions between them. Again, quite even straight lines, often quite sudden transitions. Those could have just looked way better in my opinion. Transitions between environments, yet again, but yeah, without spray tool and with Bach, which was producing such lines, it was very hard to make any kind of decent looking transition between environments back then in old Nugget versions. But still, this could have looked better, at least somewhat. Now the zone, I don't think that it is too bad. I think that it is decent, although it isn't ever finished. The only issue is this cave. Now, don't get me wrong, this cave does look quite good, actually, I would say, but it could have been just so much better if it was WMO. It would work better, NPCs wouldn't be able to go through stuff, and NPCs wouldn't be falling through stuff, because if you would place NPC on this M2 up here, for example, it would just fall down, and that wouldn't happen with WMO. So really, if you can learn to use Blender or Maya or whatever else, and if you want to build houses or caves, your custom houses or custom caves, always build your WMO, because WMO can be moved. WMO can have due sets. NPCs don't fall through WMO. It isn't raining through WMO, and so on, and so on, and so on. So many reasons why WMOs are just way better than anything built out of M2s. The last thing I should probably talk about here is that I wanted to make a river, but I haven't finished it. I will at some point make dedicated waterfall tutorial. Definitely, because I wanted to make multiple waterfalls here. There would be waterfall, there would be waterfall, there would be waterfall, and here would be another two waterfalls where springs are. Now, in new cute versions of Nugget, you can actually make angled water, as far as I know. So I'm still waiting for cute version to be able to shoot some water tutorials, because if I made any water tutorial with SDO version, it would just get quickly outdated. I don't want that. So I am still waiting with water, but I can show you how to make waterfalls in some future video. So that's it. I think that I have talked about all I wanted, probably, hopefully. Uh, so anyway, just to sum this up, don't be too hard on yourselves, guys. And if the very first zone you make looks terrible, remember, my very first zone I have made looked completely terrible as well. We have all started with something like this, and you can learn, you can improve. You just need to practice and stay determined and just continue and just keep moving. And it applies to any kind of art. That can be applied to anything, but anything in life, but really, if you want to be good map designer, just expect learning curve and remember that this is where even I have started. So that's it, guys. I hope this was useful. I hope that I have encouraged you to just keep trying and keep moving on, because you can get better. Everyone can. And as always, happy modding, guys.